Hello everybody, welcome to this week's update video. My name is Martin and I'm an Inkscape developer and I develop features and fixes for everyday Inkscape users. Welcome to these update videos where we talk about the work that's going on in Inkscape and more specifically the work that I'm able to do on the Inkscape project. I'm able to work on the Inkscape project thanks directly to your contributions and your sponsorship. Basically the users directly fund my work so I can spend time on Inkscape. This allows me to not have to spend time on private contracts, and I can actually work not quite full time, but as much as I can, making sure that Inkscape is moving forwards and developing the kinds of fixes and the kinds of features that people want to actually see. If you would like to join them, please go to Patreon or to LibrePay, and I think we're on Buy Me a Coffee as well. Okay, so what have we been up to? First of all, let's talk about the CMYK stuff. As you know, I'm dealing with a rewrite of the Inkscape rendering engine right now, and I showed you a map last week of all of the different pieces that we've been up to. And you can actually see, I'm going to throw up the revised map today. I wanted to give you a sense of the scale of the project and all of the different pieces that we've managed to complete so far. As you can see, the everything from the color API to the PDF work, to all of the test unit test changes and stuff. Each one of these things has actually been a significant project, and it's thanks to being able to spend a year and a half going through each of these large projects without really a material output yet. We don't actually have a final result released, but you guys are hanging in there with me. For that, I'm very grateful. So we're working on the engine, and as you can see, this is actually twice as large as the other previous pieces, and it's still got a ways to go, but we are reaching a sort of ending. What we're currently trying to do is the drawing item pieces. These are the pieces that actually translate the SVG data into drawing instructions. We're trying to minimize the amount of code that we actually have to change, because there is a deep 20-year-long history of things that have been tweaked inside that code to make Inkscape the best SVG renderer that it can be, and I want to keep as much of that code as possible. So what that means is we need to just very carefully cut out the pieces of the old engine, cut out the connections to the rest of Inkscape that cause it to be more difficult to unit test and more difficult to test overall. So the first job was actually refactoring the typesetting or text engine called libnr type. libnr type was almost entirely separable, except for the fact that a newly introduced feature for SVG glyphs, these are things like emojis and things that are embedded in the font as SVGs, ironically. We obviously need to render those SVGs using our engine. That engine then calls back into the old engine. The problem is that the old engine pulls in the entire of Inkscape, so you can't unit test it because you can't separate libnr type from the rest of Inkscape. Cutting that out means forcing the old engine to render its own goddamn glyphs and not have libnr type render glyphs for it. This is actually the right way to do it, because you don't want your text engine actually making assumptions about how to render glyphs. This refactoring will actually go into master. It won't actually go into the engine branch. And I've added a whole bunch of unit tests, and I fixed a whole bunch of memory issues in libnr type as well, because once you can unit test things, you suddenly find all of these memory problems that before we didn't have the sanitizer switched on, because if you try and sanitize the entire of Inkscape, you will find thousands, tens of thousands of memory leaks, because Inkscape has been built as a monolith. But once you start chunking it out and you start separating each of the components, you can actually work through by writing unit tests and then seeing the memory problems and fixing them, right? Because the tools are there to help you actually figure out where the actual issues are. But if you can't switch them on because the whole thing is just too much, it's no good to you. So overall, the code quality is getting better. libnr type, once this is merged, hopefully it will be reviewed this week, should allow us to actually test the type setting and text management stuff better. especially font management. Then there is one more piece that we have in the new engine, which is SP style. SP style is where all of the colors and stroke width and all this other data is stored. That currently gets called into the engine, which basically means I have to pull in SP style in order to read values out of it. And SP style references the SP object tree. The SP object tree references the XML tree, and therefore you have to pull in the entire of Inkscape. And just like before, what we're trying to avoid is pulling in the entire of Inkscape, because we want to be able to actually write unit tests, keep this code clean, keep it separable in certain ways. And I've got a strategy for this next piece of work, which is basically using C++ templating so that I can keep the interface the same in the rest of the Inkscape code. So I don't want to have to change too much of the code in the rest of the interface, but I can write different data in the unit tests, and it should still compile, right? Because with templating, you can compile it in both ways. It's not perfect because you're not actually testing the exact code that will be compiled, but at the same time, you are testing the form of the code, right? It will actually process these things. It just means that if you change, for instance, the name of an attribute in SP style, and you didn't change it in the test, your test wouldn't be able to pick out that problem, right? I mean, obviously it wouldn't compile, so you would find it that way. But it will at least separate it so we can test the rest of the new engine, right? So that all of the drawing instructions can be issued. You actually figure out, and mostly what will happen is that we will push SVGs into it in the normal Inkscape, see a problem, and then be able to formulate a unit test that will actually exercise that problem and then exorcise that problem when we figure out where it is in the code. And then that's pretty much it. Once you have that component, you actually have rasters being produced from the SVGs, and you have all of that work to thin out all of the issues. Then you can start actually figuring out how fast it is, whether we need to work on the speed improvements, because I suspect that there's probably going to be some speed problems, and then some color management issues to make sure that we're actually doing the color stuff correctly. And if all of that goes to plan, we should end up with being able to produce not just CMYK, but all sorts of rendering outputs from this new engine, including being able to produce PNG 64s and a bunch of other things. So this is long-winded. I figured that you guys would be interested in the details. You can obviously skip any parts of these update videos that go a bit too deep. Also in the Inkscape news, Inkscape, the charity organization, is hiring. I'm actually on the hiring committee, so we have budgeted about $60,000 to pay for 2 programmers and 1 bug administrator to join the project on a part-time basis to work on fixing problems in the 1.5 release. There's all sorts of small and not so small issues in 1.5 that need to be fixed. Bug fixing is obviously tedious, and we need people to essentially pay attention to making sure that the quality of Inkscape doesn't dip too much as we start using these new technologies, especially with all of these new features, right? So we're going to have a lot of stuff that needs to be tested, especially Mykov's work with the user interface. There's a lot of change there, a lot of stuff in the engine stuff that needs to be made sure it's functioning correctly, and hopefully they'll be able to work on some older issues as well, because Inkscape has a legacy of bugs as well. So if you're interested in those jobs, please check out the job postings. We are not accepting any applications from anybody that wants to use AI. If you use generative AI for either applying for jobs or for doing jobs, please don't apply to these jobs. We are looking for craftsmen who are interested in doing the work without any AI. Okay? Great. So that's all for this week. Thank you for watching this update video, and I will see you next time.